So this is what you need to make your yukata. I have in this little box some pins. I have chalk for marking. I have scissors, snips for cutting thread. Hopefully I don't need this, but you should always have one on hand, a seam ripper or a quick unpick depending on where you're from. I have a bobbin with white thread, and I know I'm going to need more of this, but I don't have a spare bobbin. You'll need 2 bobbins worth of thread to make one of these, so I'll be replacing that later, which will be extremely fun. And then you need lots of thread, your measuring tape. I also have a ruler. I have a meter rule. This is for measuring the pattern. I've got that one. It's really good for measuring fabric because both ends end on exactly 1 centimeter and 1 meter. So it's for a meter, but it's not straight. It's curved all the way along. So it's not great for getting accuracy. So I have this then for getting the accuracy. But a meter rule like this, where there's no, see here on this one, there's the little overlap there. That when you're measuring out your fabric, it's not as easy to do it that way. Another trick for measuring out your fabric, just here I've got a piece of sticky tape. That's exactly a meter, the front of the sticky tape, from the edge of my desk. So when I pull out fabric, I can pull it out to that part and count it out that way. And then when I want to be more precise, I can get out the rulers and actually measure it. But I can get a rough estimate, make sure I've got 3.5 meters or 4.5 meters. Exactly. These are the basics. I've also got my sewing machine. I don't have an industrial sewing machine or anything like this. This is a middle range sewing machine. You need a sewing machine that sews a straight stitch, and that's it to make this. I don't use a zigzag or anything. That said, you can use a zigzag when we get to turning over the raw edges if you prefer. And obviously you can use a serger. If you want, like I do a lot, you can hand sew the whole garment, in which case you still need all that, but you need some needles as well. But any sewing machine, if you can press through a straight stitch, will work with this. You don't need anything too fancy. I also often keep a chopstick, because this is really good for turning corners. I'm sure a lot of you have had this exact chopstick in your takeaway with this little edge here that sort of shoes into a straight corner. Great for getting into the corners. It's better than a corner turner, which I actually have, one of the hook turners, for getting in and say when you're doing your sash or your collar, you'll find that little corner on the chopstick really useful. So a great little thing to have, just a chopstick. I have a pair of tweezers. These are amazing. I always make sure I keep this little thing on them because they're very useful for, again, turning corners, but also for pulling things through the sewing machine when you need to. If you've got a couple of layers bunched up and you need to make sure your sewing machine foot is going to stay flat, it's not the safest way to do it. The best way to do it is with a spider, so a folded up piece of fabric. But other than that, this is good for just getting like tricky fabric through, and you'll always find a use for tweezers when you're sewing. So if you have them, grab a pair. If you don't have them, this is all you need. You need something to hold the fabric, something to cut the fabric, something to cut the thread measuring, and maybe this. I've gone through an entire yukata once or twice on these fateful blue moons where I made absolutely no mistakes. It was amazing. Honestly, I went and bought a lottery ticket afterwards. So there's that. I've got a 30 centimeter ruler here, so a 12-inch ruler. I have 20 centimeters, curves and triangles. All of that is all well and good. This is good for squaring because it's got the square in the middle there that you can see, which we're working with. Every pattern piece is right angled and straight, so this is actually quite good for just sort of sitting it there and working out where the next piece is going to go. But you don't need lots to do it. And if you want, you can also have some hand needles, which I keep in this lovely little mock cinnabar jar. And that's just, sometimes you need to hand sew some things. It depends on the fabric completely. I had a really thick linen fabric that I used with applique all over it, and I couldn't actually push it through the sewing machine. Doesn't matter what kind of sewing machine I had, it wasn't going to work. I needed to use a thimble and a thread and a needle, and it went through like butter. That was fine, but it would not go under the foot of the sewing machine, so I had to use another method. So that's there in case, but I won't be using that today. I'll be using white thread and a sewing machine. I've also got my fabric. So I have, I'll just do a preview. Fabric A. I have cotton poplin. I have washed it and pressed it, and then I've very cleverly gone and ruffled it up just now so it'll be lovely and creased. But I have cotton poplin. That is fabric A, so it is 150 centimeters wide, which is 60 inches. And I have 3.5 meters of that. So that is to cut one. And then I also have this, which is, you'll see the difference here. There you go at the edges. Can you see that? Yeah. This is cotton voile. So both of them are white. Voile is the lightest thing you get before you get into a muslin and a cheesecloth. So it's still got quite, it's quite closely woven. You wouldn't call it close woven. It's still, but it's closely enough woven that you don't have to really consider putting in tapes underneath the seams to make sure the seams go through properly. This is 43 inches wide, or 110 centimeters from selvage to selvage, and I bought 4.5 meters of this, but I was provided with 4.9 meters, so they gave me an extra 40 centimeters, about 16 inches extra, which often happens when you buy your fabric, but never rely on it. Don't think that's going to happen, because the rule is the moment you rely on it, it's not there. As long as you don't rely on it, you'll always have extra fabric. As soon as you go, oh, it's alright, they'll just give me a bit extra, they won't. There'll be someone really good at cutting that day, and it'll be exactly how much you ordered, and you will be up the creek. So, this is what you need. This is all in the shot. There we go. This is what I use to cut and make a yukata or a kimono. Absolutely fabulous. I got this voile because it's going to be easy to see through, so you'll be able to see when I'm holding things on top of each other. I thought it would be a really good material for doing that with. So it's going to be nice and thin and transparent, easy to see on video. Also, it makes an amazing yukata. It is so light, like it's completely see-through. It depends how you wear it, whether or not you want to wear something underneath it. That's up to you, but it's completely see-through. So it's going to be beautiful once it's made, because you'll be able to see the seams and everything like that. I also wanted to add, you'll notice that I have a rather fancy pin setup, and the chalk. They're all sat in these gorgeous, these are just little porcelain paint dishes that I bought. Chinese they are, with the blue and white porcelain. And they go in a stack like this, and they're absolutely lovely. They're great for painting, but they're also good for sewing, because you've got your pins in there so they can be protected when you're flinging fabrics about. But also you've got pins going in, and then when you're taking pins out of the fabric, they go into the lid. Really great little thing to do. The other thing that they do is I take them off, and you can weigh your fabric down. They're light enough that they're not going to pull it, but they will hold it. So you can hold it in a couple of places with all of these, and with your chalk in them. Great little fabric weights, and a great way to also keep all your pins and all this stuff in one place in your room, because otherwise, I'm sure you're all the same, everything just gets lost. So if they're all in this beautiful little stack, then that works well. I am now going to press the fabric and get ready to show you how I cut it. So I'm going to press all of it because I've washed it, and then I'm going to show you how we cut.